So, Ben Calder, welcome to OneQi. Um,
Hi.
Really nice to have you here. Would you like to introduce yourself to us and tell us how did you find Qigong, or maybe the question is, how did Qigong find you?
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. Hi, really nice to be here and really nice to be sharing with OneQi my practice and my journey through Qigong. I mean, for me, it was a really interesting and unexpected meeting. I'd done a little bit of judo and martial arts as a younger man, and I did move on to doing other things a bit later on. But my first real introduction into Qigong came when I was about 15 years old. And my mum was involved in what was the Cornwall New Age exhibition, which is this massive 3-day exhibition that used to take place every year. My mum was very good friends with the organizer, and we used to help with the organization, setting the place up, taking it down. And on this first year that I helped with that when I was 15, there was a Qigong teacher there called Ben, interestingly enough. So there's a part of me that wonders whether or not I've deja vu'd myself into my old age. And when I'm an old man, I'm gonna meet a young man called Ben and start qigong practice. And he was a very kind of he was in his kind of 70s, and he was a very classic white silk pajamas qigong practitioner, but just looked so gentle and so serene in what he was doing. And I think what really made an impact of it was on the Saturday night, there was always a big party, and there was always live music, and it was music that always moved into kind of really dancey quite music. And I can remember this teacher being on the dance floor with all of the younger people just doing Qigong. And he looked so serene and so beautiful in what he was doing. And I spoke to him the following day, and he was so happy. And he was just doing the simplest of breathing and moving exercises with people, and it was really interesting. So I got introduced there initially, and the first real practices I engaged with were Jamjong, the kind of the classic five standing, and I've continued to do that on and off ever since then. I have to confess as well, I know this is on public record, that I stole a copy of The Way of Energy from my local library at that time, because, it's Master Lam's work, and had the Bardo Jin in there. So I got to learn the first parts of the A Piece of Brocade and the standing. And I would do that on and off um, for many years, but then also through my university years, I spent the whole of my 4 years at university studying with Sifu Lee Kent, who is based in Tewkesbury now. He is a multi-system kung fu teacher, so it's the Chi Wai Black Belt Academy that he trains there. So I spent a number of years working with him within multidisciplinary martial arts. We did a lot of different styles and a lot of different takes on that. And we were very good. We were fight ready characters, which was very interesting at university. But I was always aware that there was something about qigong that held something more for me, the deeper, subtler qualities. And my housemate at the time, when I used to practice, he used to joke and say that I'm going to live forever, with all this energy stuff that's going on. And then after university, I dropped to the Kung Fu, was continuing with the Qigong, and spent some time learning Taoist Tai Chi as well. So Master Moylin Shin's system, and did that for a number of years, but it lacked the depth I was really looking for,
Mm.
and continued kind of exploring Qigong for myself for a number of years. And my brother Sai Calder, whose video is also here on OneQi, he and I had been kind of developing independently. He was spending a lot of time out in Asia. I was here in the UK, and whenever we were together, we would talk about things and share things and discuss things. And it started to become a really rich relationship in that way. And so for the last 10 years, I've really kind of dedicated into my Qigong. I've done yoga and other practices on and off through those times as well. And then in the last kind of probably 6 years, I've been exclusively learning Life Force Qigong, which is the system that Sai developed from all of his trainings out in the Far East.
Hmm.
And that's my main practice now. And it is a beautiful practice, and I'm really grateful to be able to share it with him as well. I had my own kind of incursions back into the martial world. I spent a bit of time training with Grandmaster Sam Chin and Grandmaster Jimmy Howe, who are for themselves they're kind of key holders for Iluk Chan, although they both teach it slightly different way, even though they're kind of uncle and nephew. They teach very different styles of Iluk Chan. And so that was kind of my last foray back into the martial side of
Wow.
things, but decided that the martial really wasn't for me. It was
Mm.
really important to do a health-based practice and to focus on my vitality, my energy, my own mental health, my own physical health in a way that had longevity to it, and that's why I stick with the life force work.
I think that's just perfect timing to ask you the question then. What do you love about Qigong?
I love Qigong because it's a return to myself in a way that keeps me completely connected to the rest of the world.
Oh,
So it's easy, I think, as individuals to forget how much we're connected into the seamless and all pervasive field of reality. We don't ever become separate. I love the idea that we could be separate because, from a more spiritual perspective, perhaps, we can consider spirit as being all pervasive. It is everywhere. So there's nowhere that spirit is not. But my mind as a tool for division and a tool for calculation can give me this sense that I am separate from, or I am different to. And part of what Qigong offers me is a return to that natural flow of life
wow.
that is taking place within me and around me, regardless of whether I'm aware of it or not. So in Qigong practice, I'm able to remind myself that I am part of this enormous cosmic flow.
Wow.
And actually, it doesn't matter what I do or who I am or what I become, because I can't ever be separate from that. And I can just feel more in tune with that and more in touch with that. And so Qigong gives me that experience of being able to just remember really where I'm from and what I am, and all of this exchange that's happening through my body at a subatomic level and beyond is constantly going on, whether I feel it or not. And so to feel the energy flow within my body, to realize that I can regulate and change those flows and give myself a greater experience of life, that's one of my deep loves in Qigong.
Wow, that is a really inspiring way to put it. That's very beautiful.
Mm.
And then the next question we always ask people is about lineage forms, but you've kind of told us all about your lineage forms. So maybe we could sort of, adjust the question slightly and kind of ask you, what do you think of lineage forms? Because you've been into, within and outside of those systems. What's your take on the lineage thing?
I mean, I kind of go back to, professionally, I'm a trained kinesiologist,
Oh,
and I've spent nearly 20 years practicing kinesiology. And there are multiple, I mean, nothing like the some 3,500 forms of Qigong that are out there, but there are multiple schools of kinesiology. And one of the things I can remember one of my early teachers saying to me is that we need a framework. And we need a framework so that we can understand some of the rules within the model, and then we can start exploring and expanding from that point. And it's another thing that Sai has regularly kind of reflected back to us in Life Force Qigong, is that we're there to understand a pattern and a framework so that once we understand what it does, we don't need to be limited by it anymore. And for me, that's where the value of lineage is. Somebody has got to hold a pattern, somebody has got to hold something. And it may be that I could come up with spontaneous forms myself, but actually by having a lineage, by having a history that I can connect into, I get a perspective, I get a point of view that allows me to look at the world in a particular way. And one of the things I've been really grateful for having been able to study in so many different styles and with so many different amazing teachers, is the fact that I can see the benefits and the gains within those, but it also allows me in reflection to the other systems to be able to highlight some of the limitations,
Mm.
and to be able to recognize that. And again, this for me is very much an integral theory question, is that all of these forms are holonic, they're all complete within themselves, but they're also partial to a greater whole. So again, we can go back to Tao Te Ching, that which is that which you say is the Tao is not the Tao. So in the same way, the form in itself isn't Qi. It's just a way of us connecting to Qi, and just a way of us using a tool to tune and train our minds to be in connection with this quality. And you'll know yourself that once we understand that, and once we can really connect to that, actually I can be washing the dishes and I can still have chi flow. I can be trimming the hedges, or taking a walk, and I can still connect into that. So lineage has very much its place, but also for me it's important that the teacher passing on the lineage is not trying to trap me, and not trying to say that this is all there is. It should be the platform in my mind for, here is a way in, and you can explore this for the rest of your life, and this is just how I've experienced it. This is just how I engage with it, and this is one way of doing that, and this may or may not be how you want to engage into it. So that freedom and openness for me is really important from that point of view.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's really nice. The other question we've been asking, which again you've kind of answered to a certain extent, is what have you gained from Qigong, but also perhaps also what have your students gained from Qigong? Maybe that's a look at it as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a broad question.
Yeah.
I would not be the man I am now without Qigong.
Mm.
This year alone, and in many years in my life, I can credit Qigong with being the thing that stopped me from going over the edge.
Wow.
And I can be quite direct that sometimes that edge would have been terminal. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to have had this tool that allows me to shift what's taking place in my body. And it's one of the things I love again about Sai's teaching of life force Qigong, is that we work so much on interoception, and that deep internal experience of what's taking place in my body. Again, from an integral point of view, the mind, this subjective space that allows us to think and calculate and analyze. But the body is an objective space, and the body is wearing the shape that the mind is creating. And so as I'm doing practice within in Life Force Qigong, it allows me to be aware of the shape that my mind is creating within my body, and to regulate that, to be able to offer that an alternative way of being, and to clear out those stagnancies, those contractions. Because if my mind contracts around an idea, then part of my body is also going to contract.
Yeah.
And if I'm not aware of that, then that limitation can be held in the body for so long. And Life Force Qigong just gives me this space to really connect with those things, to allow them, and to give them a method for transformation, which in a nutshell really is what my students are also able to experience, because we're really teaching them that don't worry so much about the shape of my body as the teacher. If you are not physically able to match what I'm doing, that's no limitation. What it is the experience inside of your movement. What's happening inside your mind and in your energy and in your body as I connect you to this. And it reminds me a great deal. One of my friends and colleagues, Guy Rinsberger, who's based out in Australia, he is a long-term student of Jimmy Howe with Iluk Chan. And years back, Guy and I were exchanging some videos about our forms. And I said to Guy on one particular move, I said, why don't you extend your arm further in that position, which is how Grandmaster How does it. And he says, oh, I can't. I had an injury when I was younger and my elbow's fused. It doesn't move any further than that. And I said to him, do you ever tell your students that? And he went, why would I? And it's like, well, how do they know not to move their arm past that point? And it had never occurred to him that
Interesting.
his own body shape, that he's just, you know, embedded in,
Sure.
that's his embodiment. He didn't realize that he might be creating this movement limitation in his students that he hadn't considered. So, you know, I really like to try and encourage my students to feel their bodies, make that deep interoceptive experience with themselves, rather than try and look the same as me, you know, from an aesthetic point of view. And that richness really connects them with their own internal environments, and that allows for those transformations to take place in a healthy way, in a safe way. You know, we operate what we class as a 70% rule. We encourage nobody or everybody not to go into any kind of discomfort with their practice. So they're always staying in this soft, you know, kind of almost embryonic state, this warmth, this flow, this juiciness that allows them to kind of expand and open the energy of the body, but without ever hitting those points that make us wince and take us out of that state of flow.
Lovely. Very good. Well, the last part is that we give you 2 minutes to pot something as enormous as Qigong. But, you know, what would you like to share in 2 minutes with people that could be a little handy nugget that they could use?
I think one of the biggest lessons that I've taken from Sai and Life Force Qigong is how much to pay attention to my feet. I can sometimes do whole classes where the emphasis is just on what happens as we move through our feet. So, and in Life Force Qigong, you know, it's a key aspect of part of what we're teaching. Even that sense of when I'm practicing, if my feet are contracting, then I'm already squeezing the calves, which are already squeezing the thighs, which are already squeezing the buttocks, which are then already squeezing the back, which can then take stiffness right up in the shoulders.
Wow.
So even shoulder pain, neck pain, especially from doing our standing practices, a lot of that is actually coming from the feet. So one of the things that we spend a lot of time doing is encouraging students to open their feet, like they're melting their feet into the ground. And anytime something else doesn't feel right in the body, the first thing is to come back to the feet and check that you've opened them. You know, because if the feet aren't open, we can't receive the support from the earth. If we're not doing that, then trying to get the alignment to really stabilize ourselves, properly ground ourselves, and to allow the earth's energy flow up into the body, or to allow a heavenly flow to discharge properly through the body, you know, we're squeezing the line. And you know, I work with a lot of people who have kind of anxiety and kind of similar issues. And one of the things that I see is that squeeze in the foot is like having a piping bag for icing that's being pushed. You know, all it does is force all the icing out the top. You know, so everything is going up. So actually, to be able to allow chi to sink in the body effectively, just opening the feet and really kind of paying attention to where your feet are. You know, for instance, if you're moving up through a move, where are you in your feet? If you're coming down through a move, where are you in your feet? And to do a practice or do some practices, just where you're paying the most attention to that, and just notice the difference it makes to have that openness and to feel those different parts of the feet.
Wow. I love that. Thank you. From one Qigong teacher to another, I've stolen that from you now.
More than welcome.
That'll
Sure.
be in my next lesson. That's the beauty of being able to share like that. That's so nice to be able to speak with you about this, Ben. Thank you very much for your interview.
Really a pleasure as well. Thanks.
Oh, very good.
And,
Thank you.
it's lovely to be part of OneQi as well. Thank you.